We are a company that was founded to focus on data for TV, hence Dativa. But we spent most of our time, till this point in time, on the sell side. So we spent a lot of time with operators, networks, and helping them figure out how to implement data. And today, we're coming to talk to you folks because we've learned some stuff recently and found out a way to apply data science to this problem, which is, how do you actually use TV data effectively to look at all the efforts of a campaign and optimize on a cross-platform basis? Now, I did not know. I wanted to go last because I wanted to hear everybody at this conference talk about this topic a little bit so I could kind of level set. I did not know that we were talking about the Holy Grail, so I apologize for that. That's bad from my point of view because it sort of seems I'm talking about unicorns. However, it turns out to be kind of easy, and we'll talk about that. But first about us. So both my partner and I, Tom Weiss, some of you know from Inkscape stuff, we both come from TV data. I helped launch and build Cognitive Networks. Cognitive was the original technology company that made ACR on smart TV happen. All the other companies that ended up doing that actually sort of copied Cognitive's model, not the tech, but the approach, right? We sold that company to Vizio about 3-4 years ago. Vizio rebranded that Inkscape. So those of you who have heard of Inkscape, that's the company that we built. And I spent a ton of time focusing on making that data good, right? All of Cognitive and Inkscape's focus on being a data generator comes from that strategy, and we're still working on it, right? Tom Weiss, my partner now, started off on the set-top box side of things. Genius Digital was a broadband set-top box data collection and data generation company that he ultimately sold to Verimatrix. But he ran that for several years and used that data to help large operators, mostly internationally, use their data to run their business and help their networks, their network partners with things like TV attribution, TV tune-in. So we really know this data extremely well, right? We looked at the landscape as I was leaving Inkscape, and Tom had just sold Genius Digital. We said, what are we going to do, right? There's all these companies out there at the time. It was VideoAmp and iSpot and Alfonso and various others. And we saw them all kind of pivoting into each other, which that has continued. And we thought, looks like an ad tech train wreck, right? So we decided instead, hey, pretty much the trend of this is eventually brands, networks, agencies, MVPDs, they're going to bring this stuff in-house, right? So we said, let's just go focus on that. So we're a professional services company, and our goal is to help each and every one of you figure out how to put this data to work, right? We're not a platform company. We do some stuff as a service basis, but that's mostly just to help people get started. We ultimately think you should be doing this for yourself. We're not huge. We're about 30 people total. We're growing very rapidly. We're 2 years old. We've been doubling in size each year. Our main technical core is about 20 data scientists based just outside of London. That's where Tom Weiss is based. Tom is our sort of genius rocket scientist coder, and those 20 people are basically his minions, and they're all being trained in how to take TV measurement principles and apply it to TV data, right? So that's what we do kind of all day, every day. We have a data engineering team. These guys do data lakes, data pipelines, that kind of stuff. They do data cleaning, all the processing work. That's done out of India. That's a very scalable resource. We can grow that to 100 people in 2 months, right? And then I'm based in San Francisco. We have a BD team on the West Coast, and we have a small team on the East Coast as well. You can see from the numbers, we've got a lot of history in this business. We've been doing this for a long time. With the, on the data implementation side of things, some of that's for MVPDs, helping them put their own data to work. A lot of it is recently with Inkscape clients, putting their data to work there. We are not a reseller of Inkscape. We're partners. We help them with stuff. We get along great. We're all friends. But at the end of the day, we're completely data agnostic. All right, just some top line numbers. We're still kind of early in this market, right? So brands selling to agencies, the buy side in general, that's new to us, but we're growing very, very fast. And we're growing fast based on some of the new data science I'm going to talk to you about today, because it's actually just a bit better than what's out there now. All right, before we get to the kind of new techniques, it's important to understand that when you look at attribution, there's some technology involved, right? But basically the business of matching a target data set to an audience data set to see what you should buy or who you actually reached, it's not technology, it's just data science. It's just kind of an ordinary match activity. There's some identity work in there, right? Sometimes how you connect the two data sets, but it's not deep IP, right? And likewise, matching outcome data sets to people who saw ads, or households that saw ads, it's not deep technology, it's technique, it's expertise, right? So most of attribution is actually more expertise driven than it is IP driven. I mean, even the Data Plus Math guys who had a wonderful exit, very happy for them, great comp, they were basically a ProServe company kind of packaged as a service company. But everything that was going on was labor. All right, so how do you do it? All right, so we start with Inkscape data in most cases. Again, we are data agnostic. We do this stuff with set-top box data. Sometimes we combine the two. But we like Inkscape data because it's super, super easy to use. It's very, very well productized, and most importantly, very, very well developed from a privacy standpoint. So using it on an ongoing basis is privacy safe. And you get lots of rights with Inkscape data because they don't sell ads, well, not much anyway. And so as a result, they're not so concerned with how advertisers or agencies use the data. That is not true with most other data sets. So the matching rights, for example, that you can get from Inkscape are very deep, rich, and robust. Very important. The other thing is we get IP address from Inkscape, right? IP address with viewing data allows us to take TV viewing data and combine it with digital viewing data or consumption data seamlessly, right? That's very, very easy. And that's why everything we're going to talk about today is easy. So the IP address access from Inkscape is very, very important. All right. We apply two methodologies, one listed here. There's two, really. One is national representativeness. You take a raw set of data from 12.4 million TVs, it's not representative. It's got skews in it, right? It's got demographic skews, geographic skews. You have 1.1 households or TVs per household. Let me go to this. Sorry, I'm going to skip forward to here because I'm going to talk about this. You have 1.1 smart TVs per household, but you have 2.5 TVs. You have to model for that, right? You have some TVs that aren't really used that much for TV, right? So should that TV be part of a representative panel or not? Interesting question, right? So we do a whole lot of work, and we've been working on this for years to make Inkscape data representative. And in fact, soon we'll start publishing that as a service that will be available to any Inkscape licensee independently and separately. Can I go back? Does the red arrow go back? Okay. So that's methodology A is making the data representative. Methodology B is looking at how all the different sources of exposure in a campaign contribute to outcomes. That's new, that's different, that's my unfortunate unicorn, but I think it's actually super, super important and powerful. We're very fast. I'm not sure why everyone else is slow because it doesn't seem to be that hard to be fast. And a lot of what we do, because we're a consulting company, is we spend more time probably than other companies helping our clients understand what the data says, understand how we got to those results, and what to do with it. So we're a little bit more consultative, I think, on the back end. We don't sell data. We package data together for different solutions. Generally speaking, we prefer that our customers get their own licenses. We do have a Dativa, or an Inkscape license. Again, mostly we use that for kind of prototyping and proof of concept type projects and so forth. We don't typically resell at all. We work very comfortably with set-top box data. If this slide's going to grow, it's mostly going to be on the outcome side of things. So we're currently talking to basically all of the location and data brokerage companies out there, all of whom we know. We've done lots of projects with them, but setting up our own direct MSA so we can get the data if we need it. Skip this one. All right, so kind of the fun stuff. So I think we all know this, right? I mean, the analysis actually has its roots in sports, right? So the guy who shoots a basket isn't the most important guy on the court. He's not responsible for that shot. That's the last touch attribution analysis, right? Lots of things happened to get the ball to the shooter on the right position, on the right place on the court, and make the shot. So contribution analysis looks at how the team performs when you change the players in and out, right? So if I have a shooter and 3 passers of a certain mix, how did that work? And then I have 3 passers of a different mix, how did that work, right? Who sets the best pick? Same thing applies to advertising. So what combination of source A and all other sources of impressions, and that could be a TV network or a digital effort, an app or a website, what combination of that network, let's say, and the other sources of the campaign produces the greatest outcomes? That's basically combinatorial analysis. So it's not new data science. Like I said, it's been around in sports for a long time. The problem we have in TV is we have a lot of combinations. So it's hard to run this analysis on 5 players. It's really, really hard to run this analysis on 30 networks because there's so many combinations. The math isn't hard. The computer science is hard. And that's actually what we've worked out. We actually have been teamed up with a big crew of PhDs in Spain at a big university to figure out how to actually do this quickly and cost effectively. Those are the hard parts. The actual math isn't that hard, right? But we did. We're now actually pushing past network level and starting to look at show. I don't know if we'll push through Trade Desk out to site if we're ever able to. That might be a little bit too big for the math. But the possibility of hundreds of sources is real, right? Thousands, I'm not sure. I actually really just don't know. So big, robust data science, really robust computer science. All right, so we started doing this actually mostly with TV networks on the buy side, people who are running program promo campaigns. And what we found was the great majority of the efforts, the current systems out there are using indexing. So that's single source attribution. And indexing basically says, of the people who saw, how do you compare, what's the ratio, I should say, the people who saw the ad on the network and converted to the people who didn't see the ad on the network and converted. So what is the actual incremental lift resulting from the exposure on that network within that universe? That's indexing. This is the most common way that all this stuff is done today, right? The problem with indexing is it kind of loses sight of the fact that actually the contribution of some networks is much higher than their index. So when you do contribution analysis, what you see is true, for example, in this case, although not a super high index network, is actually contributing most to outcomes. So in all the combinations of all the networks, true is the one that we see most often in high conversion rates, right? It's deepish math, but it actually really works. And the net result is that rather than indexing, rather than reinvesting or increasing your investment based on index, where you would have actually overspent, for example, on Animal Planet, you can now reinvest your funds, your campaign, based on contribution, right? We've done this a whole bunch of times now. Nice thing about tuning campaigns is they run a lot of them, so we get a chance to check and verify and test, and so we see the lift. It's actually really working well. And we're finding a great deal of interest in this as we start to talk to more and more TV networks. This is cross-platform now. I meant to update some of the icons to reflect the digital aspect of these campaigns. We are doing it now on a cross-platform basis, and we're looking at both TV and digital outcomes. We have our own pixel. The pixel is widely certified, for example. We can use this to drive the DTC efforts of the networks, which is to push consumers to their new apps, for example. That all works. So some of you who've been struggling with the last touch attribution problems, particularly with your digital partners in a TV campaign, we actually can address that. We can actually show you what the contribution is of the networks and the digital efforts in combination to outcomes. That's sort of a big deal. All right. So maybe just to refresh a little bit, what do you do, right? How does this actually work? So the first thing you do is you gather all the ad views on the TV, right, of your networks, of your digital efforts, assemble all that information together, right? You want to have all that with IP address. We can do this for any effort that has IP address, right? You then match your outcome data, store visit, footfall, website visit, whatever it is, to the actual viewers, right, to the observations of each individual household, right? You then run the combination analysis, right? So of all the different variations of this household might have had 15 or 20 different touches in the campaign across TV and digital, right? And it had an outcome. And you're using a device graph in the home, for those of you familiar with that. So we're matching the TV to the phone and the PC in the household. So we know that the outcome occurred in that household, right? And that allows you to do the combination analysis. With the combination analysis gives you the contribution weights, and then you go back and you optimize your campaign based on the contribution outcomes. I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions about that? It's okay. It is complicated, but this is what we're doing, and it is significantly better than having digital attribution and TV attribution run separately. It does address that question of which of my efforts actually contributes most to outcomes. All right. So that's us. I mean, we're kind of TV data OGs in a sense, right? We really have been doing this a long time. We probably see deeper into data, and actually, one of the things we got to do that was sort of unique when we sold Cognitive to Inscape is the TV company owns the ACR company, and as a result, they're willing to share more data with us, right, with them now. But that allows us to do things like port analysis. So we actually know if we see an ad view detected on the TV, where did it come from? Did it come through HDMI 1, which we know is connected to a cable set-top box? Did it come from the processor, which means it's running off of an app, right? We actually know the source, which is unique. I don't think any of the other ACR systems have access to the source or the path data inside TVs. And we've had a lot of opportunity to figure out how to leverage that into different kinds of data science. The ProServe focus, really different. I don't think there are any other ProServe companies in the TV tech business like us that really are focused on helping you implement. Everybody else is venture-backed. We're not. We're bootstrapped. Venture-backed companies need to have a recurring revenue model with you, so they need to sign you up for a service that you're paying for every month because it's the only way that they can raise capital, right? They need to find out some way to achieve hyper growth, so they tend to be a little bit expensive. We're just really a helpful company that bills on an hourly basis. The national model, I think, is quite unique. I think it's quite robust. I don't think there's anything close to as strong as it in the granular TV data world. The attribution source analysis is new. But wait, there's more. So in the last couple of years, I've had an interesting opportunity to spend a lot of time as kind of the de facto chief data officer of a Fortune 200 company that's not in this business, but faces all the interesting privacy questions that everyone faces, right? And it's also have, you know, we actually are a data provider to the ad tech market, so we have pixels running on our sites, and we have to think about all the privacy implications of continuing to generate that small amount of revenue in relation to the very, very large brand that we have. And one of the things that we've done is we said, well, gee, you know, how is this market going to change? How is the ad tech market going to change? How is data going to change as privacy regulation starts to emerge, which we haven't talked about much at this show. It's kind of interesting. Well, the one thing we see is, like, if you look in Europe, third-party data has dried up. LiveRamp folded up and left, right? There's very little LiveRamp in Europe, if any, especially for TV, right? So one impact is the people who provide data, like my client, are not providing very much anymore. We don't provide any data in Europe, for example. And I'm going to guess, we haven't really decided yet, but I think the trend here in the US is that the benefit of being a third-party data provider will not outweigh the brand cost and the risk of being exposed to privacy issues. So related to that, many brands, historically, long before privacy issues arrived, were very uncomfortable sharing outcome data, consumer purchase behavior, right, with any third party. Some of the agencies here have mentioned that it's very hard to get data out of a brand, right? At some part, that's just strategic and careful, right? Sometimes, you know, other reasons. As we have more regulation coming in, that's just going to get harder. Because now brands actually have to disclose who they're sharing their data with and why. And disclosing to consumers that you're sharing your data with your agency to improve your ad targeting is not a popular thing to do, right? It's hard to do. Doesn't mean they'll stop. It means they'll do it less, right? It's an issue. The other thing is, buyers and sellers know this. Some people think about this more than others. But if you have a pan-market view of all your efforts, and you know which of these efforts are producing the most revenue, most outcome, who do you want to know that, right? Do you want your sellers to know that they are delivering you the best outcomes? Because they're not going to lower their price when they know that. And, you know, look, we're actually very, very market agnostic too. We don't have a platform we're trying to sell to anybody. We help sellers a lot. They have their own point of view on this, right? But for buyers, it's worth thinking about. Do you really want others to know? Your agency, yeah, you probably do want your agency to know. But exactly what do you want them to know, right? I think that as we go forward, you'll see more and more of the brands doing this themselves, sharing the results with their agency, right? When you look at data sets, going back to these issues, so if I'm a seller, if I'm a Comcast or a Charter or a Dish, what's my data strategy? How do I want to make my data available? And do I want to enable brands and agencies to have that pan-market view, right, in which I may or may not show up so great? So every time you run one of these analyses for a seller, their first question is, how do I look, right? And in every campaign, that's always a question. So you actually find it quite hard, especially if you're a brand, you want to bring this house, probably for an agency as well. It can be hard to get, you might get access to the data, but you might not get access to it with all the rights that you need to do this sort of thing. The matching rights, for example. Is there a match key in that data that allows you to combine your outcome data with the viewing data? So without that, you can't do attribution. You can't do show and network level attribution, all right? So it's hard. This again, going back to Ken Norcross, raise your hand. It's one of the reasons that we partner deeply with Inscape for this stuff, because they don't have that issue. They will give you the rights to put this data inside your shop and to run the analysis against your own data and just pay them their handsome fees, and they'll be happy. I covered that. So this kind of gets to us, you know, back to the original reason why we formed the ProServe company. We've thought for a long time that agencies and brands would insource this stuff, that they should build this themselves, and that's really why we're here. Right? So we're not going to drive your strategy. You know, if you decide, hey, I want my agency to do this, or hey, I want my seller to do this, I don't want to pay for it. Fine. That's not our concern. We're here to help you implement your strategy. And that's the end of my story. Any questions?
Michael, thank you. Any questions for Michael? We got him here. Are you
Send me your data scientists.
yeah. Are you finding, with the business more success, like you going with the Comcast and that side, or is it more of an agency play or a brand play? Like, where are you finding, as a newer face in the business?
Yeah. So Dativa in general, kind of broad, right? So it's touching the whole market. Attribution so far has been on the buy side of the networks. Right? So we've been doing a ton of work for very large brands that we all know and love, who basically are advertising either their TV shows or their new DTC services. So it's a lot of that so far. But we really only figured out the contribution analysis, that tool. It's about 6 months old, right? And it's during the 6 months, it's basically gone through hell and back, frankly, in terms of getting the math and the science reviewed by the very, very smart and deep research folk at the networks who are like, oh, bullshit, this is a unicorn. It doesn't work. Can't be real. Oh, math works. It's because of the IP address. It's the IP address availability from the Inscape data that we're able to unify the TV viewing data and the digital viewing data. And for those of you who have wondered, why hasn't that happened for all that time? It's because there wasn't a way to do that before, because the data exists in stovepipes. Set-top box data, hard to get access to that. Not impossible, but hard. And of course, Nielsen, no. Flat, no, you can't do this with Nielsen. So the emergence of a data set that is easily combined, so a Vizio TV data set is a digital data set intrinsically. It's an internet-connected device with a digital address. That's what an IP address is. It's the same address system. It's the same physical address that all the devices in the home have when they're in the home, right? So it's new. And we actually, as I saw the rate of adoption across the TV networks, I thought, geez, we may have something here. And so we signed up for your show. So that's kind of where we are. Like, you guys are like probably the first people on the buy side to actually hear that pitch outside the TV networks, to be honest. I actually just created that pitch, and it's still kind of scruffy.